everyone. Welcome to the Day 2 keynote. I love the Day 2 keynote because we get to hear from so many of our great customers. You want to get down? Okay. The Day 2 keynote, again, is a way for us to hear from some of our great customers, and I can't wait to get into it. But as a reminder, there is so much that we can do for those on the front lines battling the COVID-19 pandemic. Organizations like the CDC Foundation, Direct Relief, International Medical Corps, they can use our help and they can use your help, and we're going to make it easy for you to do so. If you text GIVE to the number you see on your screen, you'll get information about how you can make a donation, and we're so happy to be able to announce that we're matching your donations as well, up to $100,000. But we're doing even more than that. With that matching, with Octa for Good, and with leaders of the company donating, collectively, we're going to be able to give over $1 million to those on the front lines battling the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for your help. Again, text GIVE to the number that you saw on your screen, and we'll give you information about how you can do so. Now I want to get into our Day 2 keynote. Frederic Kerrest is the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder at Okta, and he has done so much for the company, but I also know from personal experience how much he does for his community. I want to get right into it. Let's turn it over to Freddy in his house. Freddy, take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm excited to be back at Octane with all of you, though it is hard to deny these circumstances are unique, challenging, and dynamic, to say the least. I want to start by thanking the Okta team for all of their hard work and continued focus on customer success under these more than challenging work conditions. And of course, thanks to you, our customers and partners, for your support and partnership. Your success is what drives us all each and every day to build innovative products that drive our industry forward. And now, on with the show. I've always valued my personal identity. My maternal grandparents, Alice and Alfred, were German Jewish immigrants, and they were fortunate to make it to the US and ultimately San Francisco in 1939. I was named after Alfred, and I share his defective entrepreneurial gene. Here I am with my paternal grandparents, Jacques and Annie, who were French and Italian and lived on the Côte d'Azur in the south of France. My father immigrated to the US by himself in his early 20s with just a suitcase and the money in his wallet. He barely even spoke the English language. He's also a serial entrepreneur, so clearly it runs in the family. Speaking of family, here I am, me, my younger siblings, some 30 years ago, and here with my parents in my teenage years. Many successful entrepreneurs are immigrants, and they come from melting pot families just like mine, and I consider myself fortunate. I have an amazing family that I'm close to, an identity that I cherish. I'm gainfully employed, and I get to work with smart, enthusiastic, collegial teammates and great customers each and every day on challenging and interesting problems. We know the value of identity for organizations who are moving to the cloud, driving digital transformation, and enhancing security. We can calculate the ROI, the return on investment, the TCO, total cost of ownership, and the time to value when you increase employee productivity, you improve the customer experience, and you enhance your security posture. The value to organizations like yours is clear. But what is the value of identity to consumers, and how do they think about that in an online context? I'm excited to briefly introduce a new identity tax report that we have been working on. Research from thousands of people around the world on the value of identity to consumers. The report looks at consumers' understanding of their online identities and reveals the trade-offs that consumers face as they develop those digital identities, as they use online services, as they register to vote, and so forth. While we're not actually debuting the report until later this year, there are a few early findings that I'd like to share with you today. First of all, we asked the survey respondents about 13 different types of commonly tracked online data, and amazingly, over half of them did not think that their search history was part of their online identity. Secondly, and maybe not surprisingly, 93% of respondents were uncomfortable with companies selling their data online. Finally, globally, respondents spent an average of 10 hours per year logging into government websites. 14% of Americans reported that they avoid registering to vote because of complications with the registration process, a number that could have serious implications for election outcomes. Much more here when we publish the full report. You should look for it later this spring or summer. Now, let's turn our focus and now look at the ways in which identity is foundational to important facets of our economy, of our society, and of our democracies today, and how a more modern, digital approach to identity could vastly improve the status quo. Let's start with an example from North America that all homeowners will be familiar with: identity and property, specifically the story of title insurance. When settlers flooded California during the gold rush of 1849, the population of San Francisco grew 100-fold. These settlers had no idea how to obtain land, and at that time, property in the US was bought and sold without any guarantees or insurance. A whole industry of conveyancers who conducted a title search to determine property rights and ownership rights sprang up in California. But researching property title status one by one during this time of explosive growth, not scalable. And so title insurance and the title insurance business was born. If you couldn't certify that the title was unencumbered, at least you could now insure against financial loss due to defects in the title. Today in California and across the US, there's a whole industry and organized process around insuring property rights. But one thing that has not changed since the gold rush, it's confusing to anyone without expertise. And the process to research and obtain a title can be cumbersome and expensive. Now imagine how this process could be transformed with modern identity, especially given current events where you can't even meet with a real estate agent, a registrar, or a title insurance company rep in person. Imagine digital mortgages and signatures stored on a blockchain that could provide a centralized transaction platform for all stakeholders: home buyer, realtor, lender, title company. They could standardize the process, they could cut costs, and they could reduce time spent. A digital alternative underpinned by identity would make a complex process simpler, more effective, less error and redundancy prone, and vastly improve the customer experience. That's a specific economic example of identity's potential impact and value. Let's now look at a national one. Identification numbers are commonplace in the countries where many of us are from. They help governments keep track of citizens and residents for purposes of national benefits, taxation, voting, healthcare, and much more. In most cases, Argentina, Israel, the Netherlands, Norway, these numbers are issued when a citizen is born. In other situations, China, Hong Kong, Spain, they're issued when folks reach a certain age. In some countries, national ID numbers were issued for a specific reason, but because of scope creep, they are now used for many other functions. This is a classic case of method overloading in modern software development speak. That's certainly the case here in the US. The Social Security number was created in 1936 for only one purpose: to track workers' historical earnings and determine their Social Security benefit levels and entitlements. But it must not have taken long for folks to realize that Social Security numbers could potentially serve other purposes, since every Social Security number card printed until 1972 even stated explicitly some variation of "for Social Security and tax purposes, not for identification." Today, SSNs have truly been overloaded, as they are legally required from everything from federal and state benefit eligibility, driver's license, motor vehicle registrations, applying for a student loan, even donating blood. While all the processes that legally require a SSN in the United States, it has definitely become the de facto universal identifier for US residents. Unfortunately, the overloading and unintentional universality of SSNs in the US has led to abuse and identity theft. The FTC estimates that as many as 9 million Americans have their identities stolen each and every year. There must be a better way. So how could we protect our identities? Well, we need a new identification program, a digital identity. Not one designed a century ago around a 9-digit number that's printed on a piece of paper that you're supposed to carry around in your wallet. We could learn from Estonia's e-identity program, or even what's playing out in banking in Canada today. Canadians get to use the digital identity network Verify.me to help verify their identities online to access services that they need. Whether we use biometric technology like retina scans or facial recognition, whether we use digital ID cards or blockchain to validate identities in the future, digital identity could play an important role in replacing the 9-digit Social Security number in the US. Shifting gears, if you take a step even further back and think about international relations, societal strife, and the democratic process, it's clear that identity has an important role to play there as well. Nation-state attacks have become commonplace over the past decade. Countries like Russia have been targeting fledgling and thriving democracies with DDoS attacks, infiltration of intelligence systems and election commissions, and misinformation campaigns. Very visible examples immediately come to mind. In May of 2014, 3 days before Ukraine's presidential election, Russian hackers took down the country's election commission in an overnight attack, and almost exactly a year later, they penetrated the German Bundestag network as well. The now infamous Cambridge Analytica scandal and hack of the United States Democratic National Committee's email server were intended to influence the results of the 2016 presidential election in the United States and have caused political unrest ever since. Russia's actions around the 2016 election in particular were aimed at undermining confidence in the democratic process, and experts across the spectrum worry that we're still unprepared to handle such attacks. It's not hyperbole to say that democracy hangs in the balance. We strongly believe that identity can help to protect democracies, and it's not just us. United States Senator Mark Warner, Vice Chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, has repeatedly discussed the importance of identity in combating misinformation campaigns and cyber attacks. And again, given current events, people are worried about physically going to the polls on election day. An online voting system built on a modern identity framework could make that much easier. And although no one has all the answers, it's clear that a focus on identity and privacy is required. And that's why we at Okta are proud to work with DNC, various campaigns, and federal, state, and local agencies to provide identity-driven security to protect our people and information. Of course, identity impacts all of you and the work that you're doing at your organizations. In working closely with all of you and looking out at the broader landscape, there are 3 very clear trends that are emerging. First, the move to the cloud, as you look to improve M&A agility, reduce IT friction, and collaborate more closely with your partners. Second, software is eating the world, a clear opportunity for you to enhance customer engagement and modernize your infrastructure. And third, the traditional security perimeter is gone, prompting you to adopt a zero-trust security model and to focus on cultivating user trust. Let's double-click on these 3 trends now, starting with the move to the cloud. This year, IT spend is expected to top $3.9 trillion US dollars. Enterprise software is just over $500 billion of that, and enterprise software as a service is $116 billion. Now, $116 billion is an impressive number to be sure, but it's just 25% of enterprise software spend and just 3% of overall IT spend. We are clearly still in the very early innings. The increase in investment in cloud isn't just driven by the United States, the UK, Australia, and Japan. Cloud adoption is a worldwide phenomenon. In 2017, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States partnered with the World Bank and AWS to pilot a Cloud for Development project, enabling developing countries to securely store, access, analyze, and share data to ultimately better handle natural disasters and disaster relief. Or Brazil. Today, 2 of the largest global infrastructure as a service providers, AWS and Google, are aggressively investing in Brazil's growing cloud computing market. Last fall, Google announced that it will triple its workforce in Latin America by the end of this year to support cloud computing services. Brazil is its largest cloud market, with customer consumption of cloud computing solutions growing over 300% in 2018. And just a few months ago, Amazon announced that it will invest 1 billion real, almost $250 million US dollars, in the Brazilian state of Sao Paulo over the next 2 years to strengthen its infrastructure in South America. How about India? India's cloud market is also expected to grow fast. Some experts think that India's cloud market could triple in the next 2 years to $7.1 billion. And what about China? In 2018, China's GDP was 2/3 of the US. At the same time, China's cloud computing market that year was $13 billion, less than 10% of the $165 billion US cloud computing market. But the tides are quickly changing, as China's cloud computing industry is now projected to exceed 300 billion yuan, approximately $42 billion US dollars by 2023, a 400% increase in 5 short years. The government estimates that 60% of companies and government agencies will be using cloud computing services in the next 3 years. Let's now bring it back to North America and chat with my good friend Scott Spradley, CTO of Tyson Foods, a Fortune 80 company and the largest meat packer in the United States, about how he is aggressively moving his company to the cloud.
At Tyson Foods, we've got an IT team that's building the technology of the future. We're working to change an 85-year-old company to be the most modern food company in the world. So we're developing technologies that are used in our offices, they're used in our plants, they're used in farms, they're used everywhere. And we are focused on building technologies that are changing the way this company works. Everything from machine learning to artificial intelligence to using drones that will help drive our business forward. At Tyson Foods, we're driving world-class technologies to change a world-class company.
Well, Scott, great to have you today. Thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Great, Freddie, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Tyson's been around for almost 100 years, Fortune 80 company, 140,000 employees, over $40 billion in revenue last year. Not that big of a deal, really. What prompts a company like yours to move to the cloud?
It's an interesting story. I think it kind of goes back to when I was being recruited here. I think the first recruit call from the CEO, he mentioned we had a new world-class cutting edge data center. And I kind of said, sorry to hear that. And that sparked an interesting conversation where I was saying, I just don't think you need to carry that kind of cost statically throughout your IT cost structures. And explaining that to him, I was like, hey, first things first, when you look at supporting the company, you're going to have spikes throughout the year. Anytime you're doing quarter end close or a year end close, you're going to have a big spike that's going to use a lot of CPU. It's going to use a lot of storage, but you have to carry that cost the whole time. And I kind of came up with a metaphor. I said, it's like building a church for Easter Sunday. A church gets the big time at Christmas Eve and on Easter, and they're always full. And so they build that whole church for that period of time, but they don't use it most of that time. And so for us, that was kind of the precursor to it, but then there's a lot of other tangible reasons. I mean, the agility you get through the cloud, the speed you get through the cloud, the velocity, the ability to try new things, spin up a server real quick, run it, trial something, see how you like it. As you start looking at transforming your whole company, more using edge computing as well, getting data from the edge and bringing that in. The cloud just allows you to do that much faster at a better set of economies. So it's been a good ride for us, and we're on kind of the closing out the second year of that approach of moving entirely to the cloud.
Yeah, that's great. Well, talk about agility. Certainly a lot of agility required the last few weeks, especially in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I know that your CEO, Noel White, recently shared that Tyson's pivoting from supplying the food service industry, so restaurants and hotels, to better supply the entire retail industry. I think he was talking about grocery stores in the specific quote that I saw. Tyson produces 1 in 5 pounds of all chicken, beef, pork in the U.S. So you're obviously the number one meat producer in the United States. Your CEO is calling this the most significant shift Tyson has ever initiated. Obviously, technology strategy, huge part of that implementation. There's no way they wouldn't have done it without the agility that you put in place.
Yep. Well, first things first, thanks for recognizing that we're not just a chicken company. It's everywhere I go and everywhere I speak, people always think about Tyson chicken because they probably had some chicken nuggets somewhere. But yeah, we do lead the nation in producing pork, beef, and poultry. And for us, the pivot's been natural, right? So the president of the United States and his COVID-19 task force have classified us as critical infrastructure. So the world's got to have food. The United States has got to have food. And frankly, restaurants are not operating. There are some that are operating for drive-through business. And so the grocery stores are taking the brunt of it. And if you go to any grocery store, you're going to see that a lot of those shelves are kind of empty. The supply chain is being disrupted. So for us, and from a technology perspective, what we've been focusing on is trying to predict where food is needed. That's one of the things. So as you look at what kind of food is needed, when it's needed, where it's needed, when you think about these things, in the past, a lot of people the generations, some of the Gen Zs and the millennials, they're used to eating out. Now they can't really eat out as much. They're actually being forced into the grocery store to get food. So we're predicting what kind of food is going to be needed and when, and we're looking at that as we drive it all the way back through the supply chain. Right. But then there's other things that we're doing on that case as well. So we're also doing some prediction to help us figure out risk for our plants, right? So we have 140,000 people. And as a critical infrastructure company, we've got to keep those plants running. In fact, we're producing more product now than we normally have to supply the nation's grocery stores. So we're trying to look at where outbreaks are occurring. We're pulling that data in, and we're trying to parse that out with also some of the restrictions the governments have put in place to do some prediction on how food's going to be consumed and consumed by whom. So it's a big model shift for us. We're doing more with direct grocery as opposed to that food service to the aggregators. In fact, even the aggregators, the Cisco Foods, the US Foods, they're dealing with that as well. And I think then there's also some sharing that's going on with the CIOs and CTOs of those companies to really try to get more concise around predicting where that food needs to go. And then also it extends even into the logistics piece. Yep. So those truck drivers are running into all kinds of problems. So we're doing some advanced analytics there to also try to help them identify where they can stop and get food. Because if you think about somebody driving from coast to coast, a lot of those truck stops aren't serving food anymore. Right. So there's a whole lot of reasons, Freddie, that we get into some deep analytics on supporting this in COVID-19 days.
Yeah, that is amazing. A lot of the technology shifts that people like to talk about, it's like we're bringing in modernization, we're bringing in brand new ways of doing things. For a company like you, 140,000 people, a big part of that is obviously the people. I mean, you have this existing population, it's been working there, many of them for a long, long time, and you want to bring them along on that journey. You talk about all the analytics, you talk about all the modernization. I know that you're obviously a huge change agent for that there, but you have to bring along your whole group. And I know something you really focus on, we've talked a lot about in the past, is what you call Upward Academy, right? The initiative of how you can use technology to better empower your employees. How are you using technology to better enable Tyson's workforce today?
Yeah, thanks for that. And it's a great chance to share a little bit about why Tyson's differentiated among employers, people that do that kind of work. So Upward Academy is a mobile platform that we've developed that deploys across an iPad set of environments, and it focuses on delivering in multi-language support. I think it's up to 30 languages that we have to all of our plant workers, all kinds of different things, from learning how to get a driver's license, to understanding more about how financially they can manage their families, to obviously safety in the plant, those kinds of things, getting their GEDs. And so we developed this platform, and actually Okta is a big part of that, because before we did this, we had about 95,000 employees that didn't have any digital identity. It's very manual. They come in and they literally punch a clock. Right. They go through the whole suit up, and then they go in, they work, they come out, they play. Now we've digitized that, and Okta, again, thank you for your technology. That's been a huge part of that. But this has really kind of given these employees another reason to consider Tyson Foods. We not only pay well, but we're also providing these employees a better experience for their life management as well. So Upward Academy is huge. It's been highly adopted. We get a lot of positive feedback from our folks on delivering that platform.
Yeah. So, I know that one thing obviously is enabling your employees, making sure you're bringing them along, improving communication, improving work satisfaction. Another thing, obviously unique challenge that you have is around all your customers. You just talked about that food chain and that food supply chain end to end. A lot of that is not necessarily online. So what are some of the unique identity challenges that you face as you bring that entire food distribution supply network online?
Yeah, I think you're getting into a different area that, we're a company that's, as you mentioned, nearly 100 years old. We're 85 years old. A lot of the processes that exist inside of most food companies are kind of what I would call born analog and remained analog. They're, some guy on a clipboard drew out some process. So the ability to move through a digital transformation gives us the ability to challenge those processes for faster streamlining of product delivery from farm to fork and getting it there faster. That's one of the things. We use analytics to actually do a lot more prediction on what's going to be consumed and when it's going to be consumed, and then how to shift it and move it faster. I mean, when you're producing in the pound range that we produce, just identifying all that product, tracking all that product, figuring out what's at what co-manufacturer or what's at what outside cold storage is very difficult to track and trace. Yeah. We've put in technologies that are allowing us to use machine learning and AI to actually assist that so that we can move product faster, which delivers a fresher product faster. Yeah. And it allows us to kind of reduce some of the cost stack on that so that we can keep our prices lower for pretty much everybody in the country. So a lot of our customers, they come to us because of the quality, but they come to us because of the speed, and they come to us because we're very price centric for them. And reducing all that back end infrastructural cost is what's allowing us to stay on the forefront of that pricing strategy.
Yeah. So you say born analog still lives analog. Obviously, you're using the cloud to be a lot more competitive, doing a lot of those analytics. I'm sure that's a sustainable competitive advantage that, frankly, all of your supply chain really appreciates. But we are seeing, you and I were talking about it, non-animal-based proteins popping up all over. You're facing competition from now digital services. I think ButcherBox is one of them that I heard about. How do you remain competitive, not just with today's traditional stalwarts, but how do you stay ahead of the new competition and make sure that you're really continuing to drive your industry?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one for us. When you start to look at non-animal based proteins, I mean, our strategy is not to do it through an e-commerce delivery system. Our strategy really is to kind of go through the aggregators. So the US Foods, the Cisco's, the Walmarts, the Amazons, those kinds of guys, and distribute through that. The coronavirus has kind of put us in a unique position because a lot of our rollouts were planned for right now. Not wise to roll those out right now with coronavirus. So it allows us a little bit more time to use more data and streamlining of process for where that should go, when that should go, how that should go, and then actually starting to really attack what are the generational ready metrics. So for example, the baby boomer may not be as ready for the non-animal based proteins, but certainly the Gen Z and the millennial, which is, by the way, the 70-year buying trend is. But right now, because of the preparation of a lot of that food and a lot of the facts that people are picking up to go food, not many installations are ready for that. So we're probably going to have to see that come out just a little bit later. But again, not through e-commerce, strictly through the aggregators.
Yeah, that's great. Well, look, Scott, I know I've been harassing you for a number of years to join us on the keynote stage at Oktane. I really appreciate you joining us for Oktane Live. Thanks again for all of your time and your support and partnership over the years. And I look forward to working with you on all the exciting initiatives you have up ahead.
Thank you, Freddie, and thanks for Okta. I mean, you guys have been a huge impact for our business model and what we're trying to do from a digital transformation perspective. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate that. As Mark Andreessen now famously said, software is eating the world. For organizations like yours, that's coming to fruition in your moves to the cloud, your efforts to enhance customer engagement, or to build a digital platform. But what it really means is that every company has to become a technology company. We see that playing out very clearly across industries and in some of the world's most well-known brands. Take Nike, for example. Up until recently, Nike sold its sneakers through a wholesale network, or 30,000 retailers. Nike recently announced a digital transformation that will focus on 40 key retail partners and instead grow its direct-to-consumer business by improving its digital marketplace and cutting back on certain parts of its wholesale business. What's more, Nike brought on technology veteran John Donahoe to be its CEO. John was the CEO of eBay for 8 years, but more recently he served as the CEO of ServiceNow, which many of you know and love. Nike, known for its sneakers, is downsizing the retail network from 30,000 to 40, investing in digital experiences like augmented reality, which you can see an example of here, and hiring an enterprise SaaS leader as its CEO. The result should be good for business: higher ROI, shorter time to value, and lower total cost of ownership. And this massive shift to digital is happening not just at Nike, but across retail and really every sector, including the traditional technology sector itself. To bring this concept to life, let's hear now from Satish Iyer, the VP of Products at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, who's turning a legendary company, originally known for their hardware leadership, into a software juggernaut.
Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is the edge-to-cloud platform as a service company that helps organizations transform by unlocking the value of their data anywhere. GreenLake Central is our platform for driving the GreenLake experience. Think about it as a way by which our customers will consume every service we launch. My team's focus is primarily around looking at our customers' transition into the hybrid cloud environment. Our customers are aspiring to get in a public cloud, and our goal is to bring that experience, that simplicity and the ease of use on-prem, and to drive that truly transformational experience for our customers.
So Satish, welcome. We're excited to have you here today. Obviously, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, a provider of IT infrastructure and services, thousands of customers, $30 billion in revenue. Yet as we've discussed, you're continuously needing to evolve to better serve your customers. Can you tell us what digital transformation looks like for HPE and how you're thinking about the customer experience?
Thank you, Freddie. Happy to be here. So nowadays, if you think about it, right, every company is a technology company in a sense of whatever the company does, whether they are in agriculture to an architecture, whatever products they make, I think whatever products they deliver to the market, they can't do that efficiently without tech. I think this is why we see every organization in every industry looking at technology and to transform digitally, right? And we in HPE are reinventing ourselves as a business to deliver our products as a service from edge to cloud and to provide our customers with a much more of a seamless cloud-like experience and help accelerate some of their outcomes they're looking at. And by specifically, our focus is to see how we can help them unlock the value, of the data everywhere. And that's been our core focus. So we are transforming in this digitally as well, along with our customers in this whole journey.
That's great. Now, HPE has gone through obviously a lot of changes over the last couple of years. Can you tell us about how your business model has evolved? I mean, what's GreenLake's role in that transformation?
Yeah, so HPE GreenLake was launched a little more than 2.5 years ago. And within GreenLake, we have more than 1,000 customers. And most of these customers they don't want just the flexibility, but they also want to make sure that not just the flexibility in the products and the services they use, but they want to actually have flexibility in terms of how they use them, what level of support structures do they receive, right? So we introduced this GreenLake, HPE GreenLake, which is actually the market leading as a service offering right now. And it actually delivers, on-demand capacity planning, and it combines like the agility and the economics of public cloud and with the security and the performance of on-prem IT. So it's important for us to kind of bridge the gap because customers actually like the cloud-like experience they get in public cloud, but they also have their own reservations and needs to be with security and performance with an on-prem. So with HPE GreenLake, we are trying to bridge that gap between the cloud experience as well as also bringing it on-prem. Right? And when we talk about HPE GreenLake, it's also important that we offer our customers a fully managed cloud experience. So it is important because as a company, we have moved away from just delivering infrastructure. But now when we talk about managed experience, now we think we are part of that transformation, whatever the customers are. So we design, build, and manage and optimize these infrastructures, and mostly for off-premise cloud, as you want to call it. And we are truly part of this hybrid journey for our customers. So one of the key things we launched in last December was what we call as HPE GreenLake Central. So GreenLake Central is fundamentally a portal and a platform by which our customers can basically get all the cloud experience from one single user experience from a single pane of glass, but at the same time for all their workloads. So they should be able to manage whether they are on edge, on-prem, or off-prem as a service experience. So, in theory, this has done is, as we as a company transform and evolve to support this SaaS and as a service transitions, right? Tools like Okta and Identity have been very instrumental because, coming back to the point I made earlier, this is about the cloud experience. So when we are driving this cloud experience to our customer, identity and things become really, very important for us to keep this drive this real consistency and security for our customers.
Yeah, now identity obviously sounds like a pretty core piece of the entire experience that you're trying to deliver.
Absolutely.
You consider building identity into HPE services yourself, or what led to the decision to bring in Okta versus dedicating an internal development team just around identity?
Yeah, I mean, again, my focus is primarily building these hybrid cloud softwares and the innovations on top of, very core infrastructure offering, right? So if you have any software engineering teams, we can pretty much build anything, right? At least that's what you always hear. But it's important for us to say that, look, we noticed very early on that, we need to solve this problem. We need to solve the identity problem. And we needed to have an identity infrastructure, identity solution, which is kind of built and solved for the cloud, because we are in the cloud business. We are in enabling our customers in the cloud journey, right? Yeah. So one of the things is it's important for us to know that, okay, our transition is going to happen really quickly, right? And we need to understand what is core versus context. It's the same things pretty much every business goes through, right?
Yep.
So we kind of identify that, look, identity is super, super important, but that's not our business, right? It's important to know somebody else, like Okta does it really well. Let's make sure that we get the best in class of what's already available, right? So in some way, I would probably say that there has been some efforts to kind of get some of the open source technologies to see whether we can take advantage of some of them. But ultimately, we decided with Okta because primarily, you guys are kind of, born in the cloud. You guys are very, you have a very, very nice cloud strategy, and you are a completely SaaS company. And I think it was very important for us to be able to take advantage of, aspects of how do we federate identities across our customers, how do we unify some of these things across many service providers, because we are not only looking at HPE, we are looking at HPE, we are looking at our customers, we are looking at a bunch of SaaS partners, because our solution set actually has other SaaS providers, as well as hyperscalers, right? So customers are truly hybrid, and a lot of our customers actually have public cloud presence. So it's important for us to make sure that any identity solution we pick has to basically make sure that it satisfies and it actually works across all of these environments.
Got it. That's great. And I know that time to value was important for you, and partnering with Okta PS, I think you were able to go live very quickly in like 30 days or something. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the original evaluation was somewhere around August, September, and I think we actually have done with all the engineering efforts sometime early in November. And I think we started already onboarding customers by the time. So I would probably say, yeah, it was pretty quick. And there was been I think a pretty tight partnering and engagement with the Okta PS team.
So the value of identity obviously has been this morning's theme, and it's something we think about constantly. Identity is clearly important to your work. What's next for HP when it comes to identity?
Yeah, I mean, as a company, our CEO Antonio had announced last year that, we as a company will offer everything we offer as a service in 3 years, right? So we have maybe a little bit more than 2 years left, right? So, and for an infrastructure company, which basically, provides best in class server storage and compute environments, these kind of transitions are not easy, right? So, and it's important for us, we have to transform ourselves if we need to start helping our customers in this journey. So, since we have to offer everything we offer as a service, we are executing to that vision. We need to find new ways to innovate, and we need to bring that edge to cloud experience. And that's basically our mantra is, how do we are an edge to cloud platform as a service company, which actually drives the outcome of our customers and drives their experience. So, and a lot of on-prem compute and storage today, more and more customers now want optimized infrastructure. They want to have solution sets which cuts across on-prem cloud as well as also hyperscalers. So I think, from a GreenLake perspective, we have started to provide ways our customers can consume this flexibly, and we need to have a right identity structure. We need so that at the center of all of this to be able to scale. Like I said, our customers not only touch, when we are executing to, let's say, HPE GreenLake on-prem, customer side, we are looking at cloud native, non-cloud application sets. We are looking at applications and ecosystems which run in public cloud. We are looking at customer SaaS partners. For example, they may have an ITOM partner, they may have an ITSM partner, and then they may have their own directory services, right? So we need to be able to make sure that any of the solutions we actually bring to the table has the right structure so that it can scale across all these elements. So on that actually, so the right automation at the right scale is the key for us.
I'll wrap up with an Okta-specific discussion. Yesterday, we talked about our platform services and how organizations can leverage them via API or SDK to build any identity experience on top of Okta. We also discussed how the Okta Identity Cloud gives organizations like yours flexibility. What's your take on our new innovations and how they will benefit HPE?
Yeah, I mean, let me just start off by saying, identity is kind of one of the critical aspects to provide this consistent user experience. When we talk about hybrid cloud, we are talking about an ecosystem which is very, very complex, right? And so for us, we have leveraged the Okta Identity Cloud to provide a broad set of identity and access management features in, pretty much in our what we call as everything as a service platform. Okta Cloud product has allowed us to support, I would say a lot of the customers SSO requirements, through Enterprise Federation, from SAML to OIDC to Active Directory. So I think to me, the power of Okta Identity Cloud, the APIs and the SDKs, they provide a very easy way by which interface to drive this power of identity in the cloud, right? So we have used some of those APIs, to automate a lot of the common processes, and we are going to continue to do so more because a lot of our customers, as you see in the last few weeks, in terms of what's happening around the world, cloud is going to become more and more prominent because customers are experiencing these work culture from wherever they are. So I think as we go through this, having a very strong identity backbone becomes really important. And I think the global reach of some of your products in terms of, that kind of allowed us and will continue to allow us to focus to drive more value within the product. And I think that's the key for us.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Satish, for sharing that with us today. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your partnership and for being a customer, and look forward to the journey ahead.
Thank you, Freddie. Thanks. Nice talking to you.
We've already talked quite a bit about how your employees and customers demand seamless digital experiences. Well, none of your modernization or digital transformation initiatives will matter much if you end up in the headlines due to a breach. By adopting the zero trust principle to never trust, always verify, you can reduce that risk, ensuring that the right people have the right level of access to the right resources in the right context, and that the context is continuously assessed. Many of you are already embarking on your zero trust journey and fall somewhere on this maturity curve, because zero trust isn't just a switch that you can turn on, it's a journey, and it starts with identity. Last year, we launched an assessment tool to give you a roadmap for putting zero trust identity and access controls in place. The assessment reviews organizations' identity-driven security practices on everything from the types of resources you manage to how you provision and deprovision users. It also explores which authentication methods you deploy, which policies you have in place, and their future business priorities. At the same time, we also surveyed 500 security leaders across 27 countries to determine where they fall on the maturity curve. In North America in particular, we've seen a massive jump. Last year, only 16% of organizations had defined zero trust initiatives, whereas today, 60% of North America organizations either have a defined zero trust strategy or are planning to in the next 12 to 18 months. That's 275% growth year over year. Let's now chat with my friend Keith Herndon, the CISO of Baker Hughes, who's leading his company and industry towards zero trust.
What is an energy technology company? We're so glad you asked. Some might think it means lab coats, oil rigs, and refineries. But at Baker Hughes, it also means cleaner, safer, smarter solutions. I didn't even know that was possible type of technology. And redesigning what we know for a future we don't. Our who is our how, and they're anything but average. They're movers, makers, status quo shakers, all on a mission to do what others don't by committing to what others won't. Like industry-transforming innovation that unlocks the power of AI, finding new ways to cut carbon emissions, and sensing what's next to produce more energy from less. We may be 100 years old, but we're always in startup mode, and we problem solve not just for the benefit of our partners, but for everyone, everywhere. Because we're on a mission to do what's never been done by creating what no one else does. Energy technology isn't just what we do. Now, it's who we are. Look to us. Baker Hughes.
Well, Keith, great to have you. Thanks a lot for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
So let me start by telling us a little bit about Baker Hughes' transformation to an energy technology company. What does that mean for you and how you operate?
You bet. So bottom line is it's all about digital transformation. So we provide, technology to integrated oil companies, and it's all about really making things better, faster, more efficient, safer, more carbon neutral in that sense. And so it's really creating new insights to technology. So it's really a very fascinating area, an area that's really changing tremendously because of really the ability to now really look at how equipment is working, as well as just the new technology. And then for a company for like Baker Hughes, we're expanding out beyond just oil and gas into other areas where that technology is relevant. So that's really what we mean by energy technology, where there's really energy transformation more than anything.
Yeah, that sounds pretty major, obviously, as you start using with products that are moving well outside of traditional oil and natural gas. There's a lot of transformation there, and probably a lot of exciting things and projects that you're working on too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When I know that Zero Trust is obviously big for all of you, what role will does Zero Trust and will it play in Baker Hughes' transformation now and going forward?
You bet. So if I can give you just a very brief overview of who Baker Hughes is, right? It tells you we came from a General Electric oil and gas, which is a subsidiary of about 35,000 individuals, with Baker Hughes, again, a 100-year-old company with also 35,000 employees. So in June of 2017, we created a new company, New York stock ticker and new stock ticker, et cetera. And then what happened was, after about 5 or 6 months, General Electric, who was our major shareholder, decided they wanted to get out of oil and gas. So after 18 months, we became a new Baker Hughes company. Well, that 18-month window gave us the time to really go in and decide, who do we want to be as a Baker Hughes? And so for us, it was a fantastic opportunity for us to really think through what's the future going to look like. And this is really where Okta really came into the picture. So we looked at basically a new identity system. We looked at a new cloud system. In my area, a new cyber fusion center. But we had to go in and build a new accounts receivable, a new foundation for treasury, all those type of things. So we have a tremendous, amount of work that's going on in terms of building that new Baker Hughes. So it's really given us quite a challenge, to say the least, as we have moved forward in terms of our new relationship. So it's actually a 3-year journey, unlike most companies where you do a divestment and you flip badges overnight. We actually have a 3-year transition period. And so the issue around Zero Trust becomes absolutely fundamental in terms of our way forward, because now we need to make sure that we understand who has access to these new applications that we're building. How do we make sure, when we have a kind of an any-to-any relationship, how do we make sure we're protecting our intellectual property?
Yeah.
Because as a manufacturing organization, it's all about IP, intellectual property. What are we doing to protect that? And as we go forward in terms of our cloud, new applications, et cetera, how do we authenticate and authorize individuals? So it's a tremendous change that we're seeing within our organization. And Okta's really been fundamental in that journey along the way.
That's great. So obviously a big piece there is what your security strategy is and how it changes and how it evolves, in particular, as your industry does and as the risks do that are associated with that, but also specifically in your case, as you said, you were under some very interesting times, just gone public, just listed, now had to remanage into splitting up the two companies. I mean, there were very basic things, I know, like Office 365 deployments that you had to figure out on the fly. Tell us a little bit about that security strategy and what your thinking was and kind of how you worked through that.
You bet. So you mentioned Office 365. So I'll give you an example. So we were pushing for multi-factor authentication with Okta, and our infrastructure team was running ahead and had done some pilots around Office 365. And during the time that they were doing some experiments with Office 365, because they were using the native tools for MFA, they actually were compromised. And so it was really clear that we needed to move to Okta as quickly as possible. So along our journey, as we were piloting Office 365, in December of 2019, we had about 17,000, of our staff on Office 365. Over a weekend, we moved it to Okta. And would you believe that literally with those 17,000 individuals, during that time, that Monday morning, we had 12 phone calls from our help desk asking questions around authorization and authentication. So it was amazing in terms of our journey. But when we look forward in terms of our security strategy, Okta has been really critical for us. We rolled out in February a new workday system and a new contract management system. So we had to go in and create what we use Okta, we call it My ID.
Yeah.
We had to roll out Okta to 70,000 employees and again, 13,000 contractors. And so when we talk about our staff, we're talking about office staff, we're talking about people that are working in the field, 29 days off, 29 days
rig
off,
workers, right? Factory
manufacturing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So people that never use a PC, except they want to check their paycheck, right? They want to see what's going on. And so we had to go in and figure out between December, and February, how do we enable all of these individuals? Well, because of Okta, they could do it on their phone, they could do it on a work PC, they could do it on a telephone, et cetera. And then we're actually a huge cloud-enabled company today. So, but we built a brand new cloud environment. And so again, Okta has been fundamental in establishing that foundation, not just from the administration, but also, of course, from the application developer perspective. So we have something like 400 applications that we're moving from a GE cloud environment into a new Baker cloud environment. And again, Okta has been fundamental in really helping us through that journey.
So obviously a lot's changed since you first agreed to join us at Oktane some months back. I know for one, we're doing the event virtually, obviously. Thank you very much for joining us for that. And the spread of COVID-19 has had a very far-reaching impact. How have you been responding at Baker Hughes? What security challenges have you faced as you adapt to this new, remote workforce, in particular with this largely distributed group, as you just discussed?
Yeah, exactly. So first, just a real shout out to both the infrastructure team and our security teams, and literally kind of doubling capacity around the globe, around VPN access, et cetera. But when I think of it from an Okta perspective, really there's three different areas. The one is the ability for us to integrate Okta with our legacy Cisco VPN environment. Very seamless, very easy to do, very straightforward. Allowed us again a new from a security perspective, MFA just right up front. The second though was because of Okta, we were able to go in and do things like Office 365 and Skype without using VPN access. So because we were able to create kind of a web application dashboard for our employees, again, we don't need to use VPN. So it's, again, saved us from a bandwidth perspective. And the third aspect is really issues around how easy it has been for us to deploy our applications in our Okta portal. What's really positive is that everybody knows my ID. So my ID is well, when can we use my ID? Because it's been easy for us to get into these applications.
So security teams like yours obviously have evolved from, in particular, based on what we just talked about, being a check the box necessity to being an essential part of an organization's strategy, in particular an organization like yours. So now security's gone from being that business protector to also being an enabler, right? Yeah. How have you seen that evolution play out at Baker Hughes? Certainly in the past, 6-9 months, but also more recently.
Yeah. So if I think back, right? So oftentimes the CISO organization was known as the Department of No. Right. No, you can't do this. No, we can't make this happen. No, this shouldn't happen, et cetera. The reality is the CISO organization needs to be an enabler, right, for the business. So we really need to understand what those business processes are, what products that we're selling, where we're going, where the business is trying to go. And so, as we've seen, this department evolve, it's really around partnership. And a success for me is when the business is coming to me and saying, we want you to come in and help us protect this information, protect this data, or we're doing a merger, acquisition, or divestment. I want to make sure that the data that we're pulling together for this business deal is protected. Yeah. Can you come in and make sure that that's happening, in a secure way? But one other thing I did want to mention in terms of what's evolving, and that is the relationship in terms of companies communicating about what they're seeing in terms of cybersecurity related issues. If we don't communicate, and share this information, as well as sharing information with governments, in our case, the Department of Energy, FBI, if we don't share information, we're really on the back foot, because we know our adversaries, in fact, nation states, are sharing information. And so it's really critical that we do work together. And I do see some positive trends in that direction. So I'm real pleased about that.
Let's wrap it up by paying it forward a little bit. I mean, not just about your organization, but you yourself. You've grown that organization at Baker Hughes. You've taken on more and more responsibility. You've clearly established yourself as a business enabler, technology leader, but also a business leader. What advice do you have for a lot of the other security leaders listening in who might want to do the same in the times ahead?
Well, so first of it is make sure that you really do understand, the business that you're operating in, be it, in this case, manufacturing, but be it, healthcare or whatever it is, really understand the business. And so build those working relationships with product company members and understand kind of what their day job looks like. Because at the end of the day, again, you are a service provider. So how can you service them? How can you help them all along the way? The other is really work on your listening skills versus your presentation skills. What is it that you're hearing? And then I look at things in 3 different areas: kind of capacity, achievements, and relationships. Are you building the right relationships? Are you going to the people that you want to hear the right answers from, or are you going to people that really will challenge your understanding? Capacity in terms of, are you really thinking broadly in terms of how to solve problems? And then from an achievement perspective, are you actually delivering? Are you delivering what you have promised to your management team? Then the last couple of things is issues associated with taking a risk. You at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes. You got to put yourself out there. And for anyone that thinks that a career is going to be in a nice straight line, it doesn't work that way. You got to step aside. You got to step out of the box. You got to do things differently, and really, to take that risk. And again, being security and a compliance-oriented individual, you got to take a risk to really be successful going forward.
That's great. Well, hey, Keith, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us today. Very informative. Certainly, I learned a ton. Thank you again for your support and your partnership, and thanks again for your time today.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Take care. I can't think of a better example of a large global organization approaching security in more innovative ways. We believe that the key to supporting customers like Baker Hughes and all the organizations you've heard from today is to never stop innovating. It's one of our core values, and it's why we stay very close to the startup ecosystem, particularly startups that are focused on solving today's evolving security and identity challenges. Last year, at Oktane20, we launched Okta Ventures with a $50 million fund to invest in and support the growing ecosystem of startups tackling identity, security, and privacy issues. Here to share more about Okta Ventures and the work that the team has done over the past year is Monty Gray, our SVP of Corporate Development.
Thank you, Freddie. I never thought I'd be giving my first Oktane keynote from the home office, but here we are. Okta Ventures was born out of the belief that the interactions between people and the technology they use will continue to evolve, with the identity playing a foundational role. We strive to support this innovation through the tools that matter to early stage companies: access to expertise, access to technology, and access to capital. These were the driving principles for the launch of Okta Ventures here at Oktane last year. Since then, we've met with hundreds of companies across the identity landscape. And here are 3 we are quite excited about. Productive, they have a beautiful product focused on SaaS engagement analytics. Occam, a provider of identity-centric tools for IoT. And Datagrail, privacy and consent management for GDPR and CCPA, a problem we all know too well. But Okta Ventures is more than just providing capital to our portfolio. For example, with Datagrail, we've made a number of introductions to joint customers and worked on technology alignment. Join us later today for a breakout session as we get to speak to the leaders of each of these companies to hear more about their solutions, but also what it means for the modern CIO. At our core, Okta is an integration company, and the success of Okta depends on integrating with forward-thinking companies as well as some of the largest technology companies in the world. I feel lucky to be responsible for the team driving these innovations, whether it's transformational innovation through Okta Ventures, or delivering innovation that's closer to the core through M&A, or partnering with the technology companies that matter. On that point, I'm going to hand off to Maureen Little, Vice President of Technology Partners, so she can tell us a little bit more about some of the good work we're doing with IBM.
Thank you so much, Monty. I am thrilled to be at Okta and really excited to be here at Oktane Live. So when we think about technology partnerships, what better company to be able to talk to today than IBM? And today I have the head of IBM Security and Services, Chris Exemplar. Hi, Chris. So glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Maureen. Great to be with you.
So obviously we were really hoping to do this in person. We had a lot of good jokes that we were going to play around with, but let's start off by giving everybody a chance to get to know you. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. Tell us a little bit about your role at IBM and how you got there.
For the past 13 years, I've been running and building IBM's global security services practice. So just for everybody, the context, I run an organization of over 5,500 individuals, security professionals, ranging from consulting through systems integration and managed services across multiple domains. So we do business and help support clients in over 60 countries globally. And, I've been doing that for the past longer than I like to admit now, but I've had a lot of experience working in the security industry.
Well, things must have been changed. Things have evolved and changed for sure. Your team is really on the front lines. And as companies are figuring out how to move both their products and data and services into the cloud, they go through these massive transformations. What are some of the biggest struggles that you hear from customers?
It's a good question, Maureen. I spend a lot of time with clients that come to IBM to talk about the business transformation they're going through. So the C-suite will come multiple times a week. I'm with CEOs, boards, to talk about what they're struggling with and what they're doing around digital transformation and their journey to cloud. And every time they want to talk about security as part of that, because they are worried about the risk it's starting to introduce to their businesses if they don't do it correctly. So senior leaders around the world are worried. They're aggressively moving to these new business models, but they want to be able to do it securely because that's what their responsibility is. They want to be able to enable these in a very secure way. So that's what I hear consistently from senior leaders around the world. And it doesn't matter what geography you're in. I think if I get into what some of the struggles are from an identity standpoint, I really, I look at that, and the majority of what we see in the industry is there are a lot of failed projects around identity. And failed, I mean, not meeting the business expectations. So, our data says 70% of those programs that are being driven don't meet the expectations that they set out early on. So to me, I think that's the struggle. Clients and the C-suite, they're putting more money in security. They want to make sure that it's enabling the business and helping them move at the pace and rate that they need to going forward. So those, I think, are the biggest struggles. I think at a macro level, just how much investment to put in this space, and then at identity, making sure that programs are executing to their fullest.
Those are exactly the trends that Okta sees. Obviously, we built a company around the fact that we didn't think identity as a product set was ready for what was going on in the world. And so we 100% agree on that. We know how critical it is. IBM has been helping move clients to the cloud, thinking about this for a long time. In fact, your new CEO as of a couple days from now, previously led IBM's cloud business. What do you think his forward-leaning, forward-thinking style and his background will do for IBM?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of excitement with Arvind Krishna coming on board as IBM's next CEO. Ginny Rometty has been a fantastic leader for us in terms of getting us to this point and really spearheaded the acquisition of Red Hat. So IBM is very focused internally, moving our workloads, our core workloads to the cloud, but also helping clients do the same. And really the genesis of us buying Red Hat and supporting this open, flexible way of doing business was that Red Hat and OpenShift are going to be core components of that, just like Okta will be a core component in the identity space. So we are helping clients on that journey to cloud. That is from the top down of our organization. We're going to help move mission critical workloads. Phase two, as Jeannie would say, and now Arvind would say, phase two of transformation is coming. Core workloads are moving, and we want to be there to help clients move there in a very secure way.
Well, obviously we're here to talk a little bit about our partnership, and that is like the perfect tee-in. So how when your team was thinking about new partnerships it wanted to strike, why Okta? And then how are we going to help with that big initiative that IBM has for your customers?
Yeah. Why Okta? First off, as a leading global systems integrator around security, we have to work with the leading players in the market. Okta is a leader. So we absolutely have a strong desire to build our capabilities and work with market leaders, and Okta being one of those. So it is a key partner. We've got successes in every geography around the world, working in multiple industries: biotech, construction, airlines, consumer IAM. You know them, Maureen. We have more we're going to be doing together. So we are excited because clients, when they come to us as a systems integrator, they want us to work with their choice of the best in breed technologies and be an integrator of choice. That's the reason. I mean, the market's demanding it, and we will continue to be a leading SI working with Okta.
Well, and we're thrilled because we think the way that IBM goes and approaches these identity problems and security problems and finds that end customer solution is exactly in line with how we think. So let's wrap up our conversation and think about, if you're sitting on the other end and you're watching this awesome video, not only are you entertained and are you fully impressed that there's no kid that has run through here yet. I have bets on that one, but you want to learn something. So why don't we leave people with 2 things you think are critical as they think about their identity and security strategy? And what's that advice you would give to the IT professional today?
Yeah, okay, so two pieces of advice. First, engage your end users. This is a team sport. You need to bring people together to have a successful program. It can't be an IT project. It has to be a business project. So, one thing we use very effectively in our consulting business is design thinking methodologies. We bring teams in, we get everybody's point of view, and we make sure we align around the program. So the technology, the people, the process, the technology, it is critical. So always stay focused on the end users, end user requirements, and how we need to together enable business change for the business outcomes clients are looking for. And then second of all, make sure you're thinking of identity as a program. It is not an implementation, it is a program long-term. So it is critical that the C-suite sees it that way and they're engaged and part of what we're doing here in the identity space. It is critical enabler for any major business change that happens. And we have to make it work, because that's going to be the success of these big digital transformation clients are going through. So that's 2 pieces of advice
I think that's perfect advice. And I think, we want to change that stat. So you talked a little bit about how 70% of identity projects don't meet the end business requirements. I think together we're going to absolutely cut that down to almost, I'm not going to say 0, but I do think that when you and I talked once, you shared people and companies often roll out projects or even new products, and then they, after the fact, go, oh shoot, what was my identity plan around this? And I loved what you said to me. You said, our goal is to make people understand you have to start first with your identity and access management strategy. Then you start thinking about what products and impacts it will have to end users. So perfect advice. Thank you so much. Wish we could have met in person. It will happen very, very soon. Congratulations to you on the partnership. We're thrilled. Can't wait to see what we can do together.
Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you, Maureen and Chris. I'm excited to see the value that we can bring to our customers together. Now, every team at Okta is focused on helping organizations realize the value of identity and technology. But there's one in particular that I'm proud focuses on how we can provide that value to the organizations who need it most. And that's the Okta for Good team. Particularly in times of uncertainty, I look to this team to lead, and our next speaker to lead it. Please join me in welcoming our Vice President of Social Impact and the Executive Director of Okta for Good, Erin Baudo-Felter.
Thank you, Freddie, and hello, everybody. I've been doing corporate social impact work for nearly 15 years. The day-to-day is extremely gratifying. I love it. But this moment that we're in right now, this is really why I do what I do. To be able to help my company, my community, rally its resources and expertise to respond right now when the world needs it most, that's what I signed up to do. Now, over the past few weeks, amidst the stress, the anxiety, the headlines, things I know we've all been feeling, I've been overwhelmed by inspiring moments from our community. Our workplace team shipping 500 masks to the local hospital last week. Okta employees around the world rallying their teams to spin up giving campaigns for local food banks and give back to their communities. Neighbors checking on neighbors, making grocery runs for one another. But it's our nonprofit partners who are truly on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, serving the most vulnerable among us. Here at Okta, we believe that nonprofits should be as powerful as their missions. But far too often, especially when it comes to technology, that's just not the case. Never has that been so painfully clear. I know we're all grappling with the challenges of working from home right now, but for just a minute, I'd like you to imagine that you work for a nonprofit organization. In many cases, you can't work from home. You may be on the front lines, feeding people, coordinating shelter, or helping kids continue to learn amidst school closures. Or perhaps you could work from home, but your organization just isn't set up for it. 2 weeks ago, our team spoke with a nonprofit that has one IT person who was frantically buying and shipping 300 laptops for his staff to try and get basic systems back up and running so that they can continue to deliver services. Now, if you are one of the fortunate ones that has a laptop, there's a good chance it's so old you can't use it without plugging it in. Or that you're trying to manage your clients with a system that's been put together by an office manager, not a tech expert. Why? Because as a nonprofit organization, you can't afford the tech talent you need. As nonprofits and organizations around the world scramble to rally their donors and serve their clients in the face of this global pandemic, it has never been more critical to ensure their data is secure, their communications are timely, and their fundraising platforms are effective. 75% of nonprofits say they've seen an increase in demand for their services in the last year, and that was before the pandemic. Technology has a huge role to play in solving social challenges, but more than 70% of nonprofit leaders say that they're challenged to customize technology to meet their unique needs. And 43%, nearly half, don't think their workers have the skills they need to be digitally responsible with their data. At Okta, we believe there is a crippling tech gap in the nonprofit sector. But we also believe that together we can do something about it. Number one, we need to empower and enable more nonprofits to get to the cloud. You all already know this. The cloud enables flexibility, it boosts collaboration, it helps organizations to scale their impact. Number two, we live in a world where every company must become a technology company. We cannot leave the nonprofit sector behind. We have to invest in their digital transformation, and we have to do it now. And number three, security. Nonprofits are holding data on the world's most pressing issues and vulnerable populations. We have to help them keep that safe. The only reason we're equipped to bring Octane to you in the middle of a pandemic is because we have the technology and the partners in place to pull it off. We must ensure that nonprofits have the foundational technology they need to be successful too. That's why today, I'm proud to announce that Okta is committing $10 million in funding over the next 3 years out of the Okta for Good Fund. This is $10 million into the nonprofit organizations serving all of our communities around the world. And it's over the next 3 years, not 10 years, because the problems we face are urgent. And it's not 1 year, because the problems we face are also hard. The centerpiece of this effort is a new nonprofit technology initiative, which will support all the things I just talked about: cloud adoption, digital transformation, security, and most importantly, collaboration. Our goal is to contribute to a paradigm shift in how nonprofits are funded and enabled to make the digital transition. And it's going to take all of us working together to do it. Now, here's the good news. We are already seeing unprecedented levels of collaboration across the tech sector. In particular, I'd like to thank our peer companies in the Impact Cloud Coalition, who we've been shoulder to shoulder with in these efforts since the very beginning of Okta for Good. I'm typically on the phone with these folks once a week. Right now, it's daily. There is so much collaboration happening right now. And of course, none of that collaboration matters without our nonprofit partners themselves, who over the past few years have really shaped our learning and our strategy with their radical open feedback and partnership. The world is changing very fast, but the underlying technology issues that our partners are facing remain the same. I'd like you to hear from some of them now.
Our aspirations are not small. No one who works for a nonprofit or works with a nonprofit has small aspirations because the problems that we want to solve are big. And as organizations seek to not just digitize what they do, but to actually become digital organizations, there's tremendous potential.
What's at risk for us is not living in the world that we want to live in. The problems we face, we see every day in our communities, and technology can be an incredible lever towards affecting the change that we want to see.
Increasingly in the Bay Area, we have more and more people knocking on their doors asking for their services. And without technology, they're not going to be able to effectively and efficiently serve these community members.
I think that sometimes we think of helping nonprofits as something that we do with our wallets, but I believe it's something we have to do with our time and attention. We have to go in and actually listen to the change that they're trying to make. We have to buy into that change.
Nonprofits are desperate for you, the tech professional. The work you do every day with technology, the skill set you've built up that maybe you take for granted is incredibly valuable, expensive, and hard to find for many organizations.
I find it offensive that there are people that go to bed without enough to eat, ignored by their justice system, left out by their governments, unable to access education. I think as we build the infrastructure of support, the technology that helps nonprofits be able to do their job, we're helping serve those people and provide them the resources that they deserve and need.
As a part of this initiative, we are proud to announce new investments in 7 incredible partners, some of whom you just heard from in our film. And because understanding the emerging needs of our communities has never been so important, we're also investing in research that will illuminate the digital journeys of 1.2 million nonprofits. Now, I've been talking a lot about the gaps in the nonprofit sector, but there are some organizations that have been technology focused from the start and have really been able to leverage and embrace the benefits of technology to push their missions forward. DonorsChoose is one of them. Let's take a look.
When I came into this classroom, we had 30 desks, 30 chairs, a teacher's desk. That was it.
Public school teachers spent $1.6 billion of their own money on classroom supplies.
I was a history teacher at a high school in the Bronx for 5 years, and it just occurred to me that there were people out there who'd want to help teachers like us if they could see exactly where their money was going.
DonorsChoose is the greatest, simplest idea. Teachers go to the website and put up materials they need for something they want to teach. You, as a donor, choose a school, choose a project.
And you can fund part of a project or the entire project. It is magic.
Well, with DonorsChoose, you know exactly where it goes. Every dime goes exactly to that project, and you hear directly back from those kids and from that teacher.
I use it for a lot of English and reading. But people also do field trips or a special project that maybe they need a piece of technology for.
We're moving into the age of technology, and the only way my kids really get those experiences are really at school.
To have someone out there give them books, the feeling that they get, they feel like somebody in the city cares, somebody in this country cares about me and my future and my potential, and that's a powerful thing.
Support a classroom, build a future.
Perfect.
Here to share more about what's possible when nonprofit tech is what it should be is Oliver Hurst-Hiller, CTO and Head of Product for DonorsChoose.
Thanks, Erin. I'm Oliver. I run engineering, product, and data science at DonorsChoose. As you've learned, DonorsChoose is a website where public school teachers can post their best ideas for experiences or resources they want for their students, but that their schools can't afford. These requests run the gamut, from a classroom library to butterfly cocoons to underwater robots for students to restore native trout to a nearby lake. Today, more than 500,000 teachers at 80% of all the public schools in America have gotten 1.5 million projects funded through DonorsChoose, overwhelmingly in low-income communities. In several months, we're going to cross $1 billion in total giving to teachers' best ideas for helping their students learn. I'd never worked at a nonprofit before DonorsChoose. Prior to joining the org, I managed product engineering projects for Microsoft's Bing search engine. I joined Microsoft when the Windows division acquired a software startup that I co-founded with 2 computer science classmates from college. I was drawn to DonorsChoose because its social impact was exclusively enabled and delivered through technology. In the school year before I joined the org, it had raised $3 million for classrooms, and the potential was evident. Still, this was many years before crowdfunding was a thing, well before Kickstarter or GoFundMe began. When I started, there was nobody running the technical operation and no full-time technical staff. We had to solve lots of fun problems along the way, like how to handle the deluge of traffic when we were shouted out on TV by folks like Oprah and Stephen Colbert, who you just saw in the video. We had to figure out how to hire and retain great developers in a tight talent market while paying below average compensation. Fast forward to today, our engineering team has moved our technical infrastructure to the cloud and built out an API that many of our corporate partners use. Our data science team looks for opportunities to apply machine learning to improve our user experience and our business processes. Our product team A/B tests every change and does sophisticated user research and usability testing. DonorsChoose is now raising $150 million a year for classrooms nationwide. But many people are surprised to learn that only half that amount is from website donations. The other half come from companies who donate to classrooms through cause marketing partnerships, like those we've done with Disney, 3M, Volkswagen, Chase, and Target. Okta recently made a very generous donation through DonorsChoose to 90 high-need classrooms in San Francisco. Grateful beneficiaries include Miss Wang's class at Malcolm X Academy, for whom Okta bought 3 awesome tricycles to help her pre-K students improve their gross motor skills and burn off excess energy. And Mr. Hodgel's robotics team at George Washington High School, for whom Okta funded nuts, bolts, washers, piping, and fasteners to build new robots for an upcoming competition. Unlike most crowdfunding platforms, we're not a cash pass-through. When a classroom request is fully funded, we don't send the teacher money. We fulfill every project ourselves, shipping the resources directly to the classroom or paying the bus company for the field trip. This means we have a complex back-office fulfillment operation that we also had to scale with software. But how might our fulfillment operation work if schools were closed? The crisis that's on all of our minds, the coronavirus pandemic, has challenged us to answer this question, as it has separated teachers and students from each other and their classrooms. Over the last 3 weeks, DonorsChoose has been rushing to build a mechanism for getting children in low-income households the essentials they need to keep learning despite nationwide school closures. Our premise is simple. When students cannot go to school, their home circumstances and the resources available in their homes will define their education, which means coronavirus threatens to widen educational inequity in America. At the same time, teachers know which of their students are experiencing homelessness and need hygiene items and shelf-stable groceries, which of their students do not have internet access and need a way to connect, which of their kindergartners need crayons and magnetiles, and what the right books are to send to each of their students. Now at DonorsChoose, teachers will be able to send their students personalized education care packages containing the materials their students need to keep learning. This new program, called Keep Kids Learning, has required a complete pivot of our operating model. We're making changes to more quickly purchase what teachers request and ship them directly to the teacher or even to students' homes. DonorsChoose has been helping teachers and students for the last 20 years, and we're dedicated to getting them what they need most during this crisis. I talk often with technical leaders at other nonprofits and across the tech sector. I've learned that us nonprofits have a lot of challenges in common, and that most of them are the same as those faced by our peers in the private sector. Things like security, technical recruiting, ensuring quality, and now the obstacles presented by a global pandemic. All these shared challenges are why I'm certain that so many of you are in a position to help. You can contribute your expertise, donate your company's product, open your wallet to provide direct support, or get your customers involved through cause marketing partnerships. Folks like you are also needed as advisors and board members to help nonprofits modernize and turn technology into a competitive advantage. I hope some of you will consider helping to accelerate nonprofits like DonorsChoose, because we need you now more than ever. Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you, Oliver. I think we can all agree that investing in you and your mission instead of buying a bunch of swag for Octane was a really good decision. And, to see how you all are pivoting and responding to the needs out there because you're so fluent, because you're so equipped with technology is really powerful. We're so grateful you spent some time with us today. Thank you so much. I also want to give a huge thank you to all of our nonprofit tech leaders, customers, and partners. There's a reason that they ask me to speak at Octane every year instead of just rallying the troops at the next all-hands meeting. And there's a reason that they prioritize this content even in our virtual delivery here today. It's because we can't fill the nonprofit tech gap on our own. We need your help. I'm going to invite Freddy back on to bring this home.
When we started Okta, people told us it's too gnarly, don't touch it. And when you look around the world now at the challenges we face, a public health crisis, climate change, homelessness, income inequality, people are saying the same thing. This is too big, it's too hard, it can't be done. But at Okta, we aren't afraid of solving problems that seem unsolvable. That's the Okta story, and that's the Okta way. Today, we're asking you to be deliberate when you donate. 80% of nonprofit donations are restricted. This is the kind of thinking that says, well, I'll donate to Meals on Wheels, but I don't want to pay to train the people who work there or to help them build the system they need to manage their clients. It has never been more important to invest in the infrastructure and technology that we know can transform every organization. We also want you all to leverage your voice and your talent. Nonprofits are hurting. They've canceled their fundraisers, they're down critical funds, they're trying to figure out how to go virtual and how to motivate their clients and donors online. If you are on a nonprofit board today, start or change the conversation around technology. And if you're not on a board, find an issue or an organization that you're passionate about and join one. We need more tech leaders to come to the table.
Thank you, Freddy, and thank you all for listening today. Something that has struck me just through the last few weeks is just how grateful I am to be a part of the Okta team, especially right now. Because the truth is, Okta for Good isn't an initiative or a program or a department. It's really a community of people across our entire ecosystem of employees and customers and partners who really care about making a positive impact, especially when it's needed most, especially right now. So whether you give to an organization you love, or support your local small business, or roll up your sleeves to volunteer, I want you to know that there is room in our community for each and every one of you. And of course, I invite you, if you haven't done so already, to support our Octane COVID-19 Response and Relief Fund. We are one of 24 tech companies that have collectively committed over $20 million to response and relief efforts so far. And we really want you to be a part of that with us. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and back to you, Freddy.
Thank you all very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for Octane20 Live. Trust me, after writing, editing, practicing, and recording all of these sessions from my home, I know it's very different than physically being all together for our conference. I greatly appreciate the support, partnerships, and friendships that I've been fortunate to build with many of you over the past months and years, and I can't wait to see you all again in person sometime very soon. Until then, please stay safe, healthy, and positive, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me or anyone from the Okta team at any time if there is anything that we can do to help. With gratitude and many thanks.
Thank you, Freddy. That was great. I love hearing our customer stories. And speaking of customers, just yesterday, we honored our customers, as we do every year, with awards, highlighting their innovation, how they're moving their businesses forward. Congratulations to all of our customer award winners. And while I have you, I have to let you know, Zero to IPO is a podcast that we did a year ago, highlighting what it takes to bring an idea from conception all the way through to IPO. And we're not done. We have a second season of this podcast, and the very first episode is available now. It's a conversation with Frederic Kerrest and Eric Yuan, the CEO and founder of Zoom, in conversation with entrepreneurs. That episode is available now. It's at 02IPOpodcast.com. You should definitely check it out.